Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. We are here live from the Chantilly, Virginia studios at Kardec Radio. Did you know that our studios are precisely at the Spiritist side of Virginia? Yes, it is. The headquarters of the Spirit side of Virginia holds also the space, sacred space, for the Kardec Radio works. And you're invited to come and join us. You know, if you're going to Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America, you're invited to stop by. We're just less than 25 miles away from it, and you can stop by and talk to us here at Kardec Radio. Just go to kardecradio.com, and you have a contact form through which you can communicate with us. We also have a phone number, and you can see in our website the number 410-382-5328, through which you can talk to us. You know, today we're going to talk about the spiritual evolution of animals because there are listeners who kindly have asked us to clarify how Spiritism sees the evolution of animals. And you know, we have enough literature to actually share with you and let you know how it works. But don't forget, in less than 2 weeks, actually precisely 2 weeks, we are going to have a special event at the Long Island Spiritist Doctrinal Studies, and they are launching their 4th annual suicide prevention campaign. And this is going to go through this year at a special event at Stony Brook University. And there we're going to have the opportunity of talking about how Spiritism actually fosters solutions for it. We will be there. You also have an opportunity to go to their website and get to know more information. Just go to lispiritistdoctrine.net. Li from Long Island, spiritistdoctrine.net. And through the website, you're going to see the flyer on the 4th annual event on suicide prevention. Several speakers are going to take the Spiritist approach from different angles to let us know about how we can march towards suicide prevention. And you know, yesterday, NPR released an article regarding suicide prevention on children and youth. Did you know that throughout the last 30 years, the numbers of suicide have escalated in children from 5 to 14 years of age? Many people think that children do not commit suicide, but unfortunately, this is not true. Experts in the field have been studying it, and they even talk about how they do it, sometimes putting themselves at risk. Crossing a street is a way that they actually putting themselves to the risk of killed. And the experts say they can kill themselves voluntarily. So what do? We are going to talk about this as well in this annual suicide prevention seminar. And you can go, it's only $25 for almost like a whole day event. You just go to the website and get to know more about the information of the speakers. We will be there too. Kardec Radio will be there. Go to lispiritistdoctrine.net/suicide prevention. Now, today we are talking about the evolution of all of us. And you may be asking, how do we evolve? Have we come from the apes? Many people have asked this question. So we are going to talk about this and much more. But before we do so, we're going to stream 2 messages that represent the thought through which we can understand about it. First is the one so, and the other one is a little more. After this, we're going to talk to you about how Spiritism sees the evolution of animals.
So. Each heart is like a parcel of spiritual land. Many will be buried by the stones of prejudice at the side of others who got entangled by the thorns of illusion, needing enormous time to break free. However, think about the good land not in use. This is where elements that generate inertia are found. Abandoned lands, orphaned lands, creatures who are anxious for the fertilizer of faith, souls who beg for a modest garden of hope and comfort. These troubled, forgotten lands will often look for you. Your vision will open up through the fatigue of the parents where pain manifests, tortures, and consumes, through the disillusionment of your sad fellows who carry in their hearts the ashes of their own dreams, through the problems of the child who is consumed by revolt, through the trials of your brothers and sisters who cry smiling so that you may not see the debris of their resentment. If you can already hear the sublime sower proclaiming, "So," you know that charity is the sun that sweeps the shadows. You bring within you the gift to sprinkle comfort. You can pronounce the blessed word. You can pour what is left from the purse, transforming the coin in a prayer of joy. You have the strong arm which lifts up the fallen. Your fingers are capable of mending the strings broken by suffering in others' hearts, attuning them to the sound of the fraternal music. You have the privilege of sharing clothes you no longer need with those less fortunate. Nothing hinders you from helping the sick. Nobody prevents you from building in the road the good for those who are here and for those who are to come. Do not deter yourself in the emptiness of the shadows. Plant truth and light, joy and goodness. If you perceive the voice of the sublime sower, you will hear him at each step of the way, confidently saying closer to your ears, "Work while you can," and so. A little more. You are under the impression that you have exhausted the stock of all your resources in a particular work of love. But if you persevere a little more in your devotion, no one can predict the laurels of light that will shine in your path. You are sick and intend to obtain a prolonged leave. But if you persevere a little more in your service, who can predict the treasure of new energies which will appear in your way? You met huge difficulties in the exercise of good deeds and wish to run away from them. But if you persist a little more in the building of benevolence, who can predict the triumph that your vested hours will collect from the living sources of charity? You believe you cannot tolerate the inopportune friend, the disobedient daughter or son, the thoughtless brother or sister, the fickle wife, or the foolish husband. But if you withstand a little more the difficulties in your household, who can predict the extent of the joy that is to reach your home? You assume that misfortune is your destiny and cry at the door of despair. But if you cultivate a little more fidelity to your own obligations, who can predict the magnitude of your success in the tomorrow which draws closer. You experience enormous fatigue and do not wish to hear a long-winded friend. But if you persevere a little more in your sacrifice, who can predict the fruits from the harvest of blessings that will come from your brief minutes of courtesy? Notice that you too, in the pursuit of anything, demand incessantly a little more goodwill, a little more cooperation, a little more time, a little more kindness from your neighbor. Genius and patience are never ending. It is fair that you wish a little more happiness. For this, it is necessary that you play a helping part in the happiness of others. Be aware of the lessons of life, and you will understand that to be victorious is to work always in accordance with your duty and to serve a little more.
Yes, dear listener, a little more always. And today it's all about the spiritual evolution of animals. Well, if you go to the book that is in English but yet to be published, and as I've heard, it's on its way to being published, we all know that the evolution of the spirit happens from internships into matter, okay? So that's how it happens. If you go to the book Evolução em Dois Mundos, Evolution in Two Worlds, we also have translated it and worked on it with courses in the Spirited Side of Baltimore and the Spirited Side of Virginia between the years in 2011 2012. This book talks about how we were created by God, simple and ignorant. We were created in such a way that we, as creatures of God, we are not complex. The human form is very complex. Simple and ignorant, meaning the level of spiritual principle. It's like a spiritual seed, in a very rough analogy. Through internships in matter, from kingdom to kingdom in nature, the mineral kingdom to the vegetable kingdom or the plant kingdom, into the animal kingdom, and finally into the human kingdom. We in Spiritism understand that the animal kingdom is one and the human kingdom is another one, completely different, though it's a continuum. The spiritual principles evolve as they clothe themselves with matter, physical matter. So from the cells, the amoeba, the viruses, they also very primitively host, the physical part of it is the host of the spiritual principle that is evolving. From one species to the next, they evolve, they acquire new experiences, learning, and through that, they go to the next step. That's the reason why science has already identified that from one kingdom to the next, you find species that have the characteristics of both. There, for example, the plant that eats insects. It's a mixture. It's as if it's in between the kingdoms, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom. Why? Because the spiritual principle that is connected to that physical plant is acquiring new learning experiences through which they can evolve the spiritual body first and then the physical body. So let's talk about the perispirit. Kardec said that once we are created, with the spiritual principles are created, we also have the material principles. They are connected through this energy that we call universal cosmic fluid. Connecting one another evolve. So we need internships in matter, clothing ourselves to acquire learning experiences and thus expanding the complexity of our perispirit, the spiritual body. When you say that, for example, you saw a spirit, you actually didn't see spirit, you saw the perispirit of somebody. Because Kardec asked the spirits in the spirit's book, what's the definition of spirits? And the answer was, well, with the terminology of yours, it's going to be hard. But just for an analogy, it's what we call spirit. It's a flame that is enveloped by the spiritual body, the perispirit, and when it's incarnated, it's connected to the physical body. It can be the physical body of a cell, the physical body of an amoeba, virus, a dog, a cat, a dolphin, a human being, etc. I know it's somewhat simplistic the way I'm saying, but if you go to the book, Evolution in Two Worlds, you're going to have the full spectrum of the explanation. But we're going to break it down here to you, okay? Don't worry. We're here with you, and we're going to break it down in details how we do it. The book is already translated, just in need of publishing, okay? And Evolution in Two Worlds, just so you have an idea, he talks about how we learn as immortal principles, as immortal spirits. We evolve through the acquisition of learning, and it's about repetition and effort. André Luiz, the spirit doctor who came to Chico Xavier and told his story in the book Nosso Lar, later discloses in the Evolution in Two Worlds as a physician, a researcher, a reporter of the beyond, comes back to explain to us that through the two facets of effort, petition, we evolve. My friends, this is one of the most striking, how do I say this? Information that the spirits have got to us. They say that we evolve through the effort we make and the repetition. Sometimes we need to repeat the lesson and repeat the lesson and repeat the lesson until we get it. That's precisely how evolution works. It's effort and repetition. Effort and repetition and repetition. Let me give you an example. Olympian athletes like Michael Phelps, he only got to be amazing as he is through effort and repetition. He never stopped and said, I already know how to do it, that's it. No, he keeps repeating it, and the more he repeats, the more he progresses, the more he repeats, the more he progresses, the more he repeats, the more he progresses. Effort, repetition. Effort, repetition. Effort, repetition. And then we progress. That's how it works. We can't escape the mechanism of life. So when we see our children, and we want them to learn something, don't tell them, yeah, you've done once, you know it. No. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And that's how, through effort and repetition, says André Luiz in the book Evolution in Two Worlds, acquire new learning experiences, and we progress. We evolve. How about that? Think about this. I'm going to give a short break. When we come back, we're going to expand this idea so we know more about how animals, and not only animals, but the evolution of spirits in general happened. But we're going to focus on animals first and foremost. Okay? Let's listen to this beautiful message of joy and prayer of service. Soon after, we're going to keep talking about it.
Joy. Joy is the song of the hours when God caresses your passage through the world. Everywhere flowers bloom as smiles of nature, and the wind combs the field's hair with resting music. The water from the fountain is liquefied care in earth's heart, and the small golden grain of sand is a message of joy from the ground. Do not allow, therefore, that your difficulty transforms itself into numbing sadness for others. Even if everything appears to conspire against the happiness that you await, lift your eyes to the smiling face of life that envelops you, and bolster joy wherever you go. Bless and serve always, even among tears. The rose, although subjugated by thorns, still offers its perfume, and sunrise awaits generously for the night to finish in order to renew itself. Daily, in a party of love and light. Prayer of service. Lord, teach us to walk the enlightening path of service. Give us the strength to destroy the heavy fortress of our wrongdoings, the courage to pave the way to freedom from ourselves, and the means to unlock our hearts in favor of our neighbors, surrendering to them at last the treasures of love with which you entrusted us. Wherever we walk, may pain become less hurtful, ignorance less aggressive, hatred less cruel, darkness less dense, lethargy less shadowing, intolerance less destructive. If we do not yet possess the positive qualities to enrich our terrestrial journey, help us to mitigate the injustices that surround us. May we, in your name, distribute fraternity and renewal, and use with happiness the sublime and invisible gifts of silence, comprehension, and renunciation. Lord, who taught us without words the supreme lessons of simplicity in the cradle and of sacrifice in the cross, leading us toward spiritual development and divine resurrection. Guide our uncertain walk and help our sanctified propositions, so that your will, merciful and just, be unto us, with us, and for us, today and forever, wherever we may be. So be it.
Yeah, dear listener, if you have a question, you can always contact us here at 858-769-4705. But we never open the line without talking to you off air first. So you just hold on if you have a question, and we're going to find a way to talk to you before we open so you can speak to us on air, okay? So back to where we were. evolution into worlds, the evolution of ourselves, the evolution of animals. Animals evolve, yes. So next time you see an animal, bless it. Even the bugs, even the cockroaches, even the flies, the insects, the snakes, everything. Everything is a creature of God, and we should see it beyond the physical body. Let me tell a story by Chico Xavier. Chico Xavier, he saw it in such a way, as he learned from Spiritism, that he had one day, he was with a friend at home, and this friend was a little bit upset with the many ants in the house. So this friend was upset and he said, Chico, I'm going to find a product to kill these ants. So quickly, Chico, he knelt down and started talking to the ants and saying, my little friends, go away, run away, because my friend here is upset with you guys and he's going to bring something that, you're not going to be happy when he comes back. So run away, run away. And believe it or not, the ants started walking away from the home to the point that the friend didn't need to use any product to put them away. Isn't that interesting? It's very interesting. It's an opportunity for us also to learn about it, how humans have this ascendancy over the spiritual principles that animate the bodies of animals. In the book Evolution into Worlds, that is yet to be published, though translations, there are actually two versions going around, it's ready there. We know that on chapter 3, André Luiz talks about evolution and the spiritual body. And he talks about the fact that there is what? Elementary matter. Okay? Elementary matter that was created by God, okay? And it says, though we cannot explain better the structure, the deep structure of it, we know that constructing genie, the elevated spirits, the superior spirits, they connect that elementary matter to the intelligent principle. And he says, okay, worked in the course of millennia by the spiritual operators that magnetize its values, it exchanges through the action of inner heat and external cold. It's going to start connecting the elementary matter to the spiritual principle that is going to be evolving. And then centuries of silent activity go through successively. Something interesting I would like to share with you. It's a study we've done in the years 2011, 2012 in the Spirit Society of Baltimore and then the Spiritist Society of Virginia. We've got to know through the study of this book, Evolution into Worlds by André Luiz, through the psychography of Chico Xavier, that at each and every step of our evolution, from the first moments of creation to date, we have different categories of elevated, illuminated spirits that, let's say in modern words, babysit us, but it's not only babysit, they help us. Because sometimes babysit is just like watching the kid, not necessary because it's a lot of work, I know. But it's more than that. They are educators. They are doctors of our souls, etc. And it's interesting because we observed that there are 12 different categories of spirits. 12 different categories of spirits that do the work from the moment we are created to the moment we are humans, just like now. And what we observed through André Luiz's studies as we were studying his studies is that as we are quite young, spiritually speaking, intelligent principles, the younger we are, the more evolved, illuminated is the spirit. He calls them, as I mentioned to you, constructing genie. So they are pure spirits that are like engineers of the soul, engineers of the spirit. They are connecting us spirit to matter, intelligent spiritual principle to material principle. And as he says here, they work on it diligently and they await the experiences to flow. And sometimes centuries go by in this apparent silent activity. And this is interesting because when you talk about activity, you talk about motion. But when you talk about silence, here he means harmony. So it's like harmonious activity. Silent meaning it's there. What is it? The mineral kingdom. It's there. No wonder people are fascinated with crystals. Andre Luiz this unveils to us the fact that crystals are already a greater advancement of the spiritual principle in connected, adjacent, connected to the physical part of the elementary matter in those stages and transitioning to the plant kingdom. No wonder in chapter 3, as we just read a few excerpts to you, he talks about the birth of the plant kingdom. So this is interesting because the way Andre Luiz is teaching us to read nature is from a spiritual perspective to the material perspective. So we read it with the eyes of the spirit, which is actually the real life. So the spirit. The plant kingdom begins because of the necessity of the spiritual principle, and not the reverse. It doesn't exist until the spiritual principle is ready for that clothing. So it's fabricated, literally, customized for the needs of that particular spiritual principle. So from now on, when you walk in nature, do your exercise. 2 lenses, the bifocal lenses of life that the Spirit Andre Luiz brings to us. It's about looking at the material with the eyes of the Spirit. So the material is a consequence. It's a manifestation of the spiritual. So he says that through these internships, then the spiritual principle is going to manifest itself in the body of a virus. We don't like viruses. They make us sick, right? Yeah, but they are spiritual principles. There are spiritual principles connected to those bodies. And with them, we see the manifestation through the development of it, of the spiritual principles, fundamental monada, and then they develop into the rudimentary bacteria. Millennia and millennia go by. Isn't that interesting? So, effort and repetition, effort and repetition, effort and repetition. And then viruses, bacteria, different species evolving. So nowadays, many people talk about superbugs, like bacteria, even fungi. They recently discovered in the United States a deadly form of a superbug, like a fungi that are very lethal to people. And there's no other way because they evolve. They evolve. Science doesn't understand the full spectrum of it yet. But if scientists could just read these books, they would expedite their discoveries, as Dr. Gary Schwartz once said to us at Kardec Radio. And then the formation of algae, stained by the resources of life, that in bacteria and the cells constituting the protoplasmatic liquid, the intelligent principle nourishes itself now in chlorophyll, which reveals an atom of magnesium in each molecule, preceding the constitution of blood that will feed the beings in the animal kingdom. My friends, I purposefully read this paragraph to you because this is how specific André Luiz is in his writings. He is not superficial. He goes deeper and deeper and deeper. He talks about how the atoms of magnesium in the chlorophyll of algae are going to be the rehearsals of the bloodstream into the animal kingdom. As we said, progressive acquisitions, expanding the manifestation of the spiritual principle in the physical body, and thus creating the foundation for the next experience. Physical bodies that are customized to each and every spiritual seed, to the spiritual principles that will evolve and evolve till they reach the human kingdom and then the angelic kingdom and so on and so forth. So time goes by without rush. So interesting. This is another observation through the book, Evolution into Worlds. There's no rush in nature. God is not in a rush. He's not in a rush that you evolve, though he already sees you perfect. Because for God, there's no past, present, future. God's not going to love you more or less because you're not perfectly unfolded, because deep inside we're all perfect. We're just learning and acquiring new learnings, expanding the divine potential inside of us. God loves us today as he loved us yesterday and will love us tomorrow. Are you disappointed? Were you doing things because you would be rewarded by God's love? My friend, the joy is ours. God is with us always, irrespective of our shortcomings. But we will be happier, more fulfilled when we evolve. No wonder Kardec asked this question in the Spirit's book. If we all going to evolve and we're going to achieve this so-called perfection, why the rush? And the Spirit said there's no rush. But the sooner you get there, the happier you'll be. God doesn't become happier because we make things right. God is immutable, unchangeable. It's not a human. Doesn't have our emotions. Doesn't have emotions. Because God is not a being. He's the supreme intelligence of the universe. First cause of all things. The source. It's hard to tell. It's hard to understand and to grasp. But it's okay. Go read more about God, first chapter of the Spirit's book by Kardec, and you get more information about it too. So back here, from plant to the animal kingdom, okay? So then we know that time goes by in this slow movement of the birth of humanity. And then we see the first swimming algae. And through those bodies, the Spirit is acquiring motility, sensibility, acquisitions for the spiritual principle. However, they are still plants. And they still exist today, says André Luiz. And they are filters of primary evolution of the intelligent beings, principles, in constant expansion. But the super-evolved plants in the domains of sensation and embryogenic instinct, they await the magnesium of the chlorophyll as a mark for the species. So you see the magnesium in the chlorophyll in this algae are a rehearsal of the acquisition of the spiritual body that is going to animate later the flow of blood in the animals. So when you ask about the evolution of animals, it's inevitable to talk about the evolution of the spirits in the plants. Succeeding then in this order, the green algae, they go through it. They learn to reproduce, sexual reproduction, okay, inaugurating sexual reproduction and creating in many eras the deep dynamism that is going to open opportunities for the spiritual principles to enter the animal kingdom. How does that go through? And he says in this very chapter 3, those spiritual principles are then ready to get into the arthropods, which is this specific moment in which later, the bugs. So we're talking about every single moment in nature being a blessed crib for the experience of the spiritual principle. He says, from the atomic crystallizations and of the minerals to the virus, to the protoplasm, to the bacteria and the amoeba, the algae, and the plants in the pre-Cambrian period, and other different types, the spiritual principle reaches the level of the spongy and the coelenteraids of the Paleozoic era, constituting the skeletic structure, the skeleton. So he's talking about how the spiritual body, through these internships, is going to learn little by little the acquisitions and expand the manifestation in the physical body. You know, in a way, let me give you a rough analogy of how it works. Okay, it's very rough, but it's an analogy. When you're a baby, you have specific clothes for you. As you grow, you gain opportunities. Your body expands and grows, and you need different clothes. For each and every stage in our human growth, we need, for example, babies use diapers, and then toddlers learn to do potty training. They use panties and underwear. And we grow bigger. We need bigger underwear, bigger pants, bigger shirts. In a rough analogy, that's precisely the movement of the spiritual body. As we grow spiritually, we will customize and manifest these customizations from the spiritual body to the physical, because it's always from mind over matter, mind over matter, mind over matter, okay? And André Luiz is going to tell us that these rehearsals take millennia, and through the advancements of the crustacean, for example, we're going to develop the vascular and the nervous system, okay? And through the Jurassic period, which is the dinosaurs, right? He even talked about the dinosaur era here. We're going to enter the first mammals right after that come from the reptiles. He's talking about the evolution of the physical into the spiritual. What does this tell us? What does this tell us, dear listener? It tells us that when science talks about the evolution of the species based on Darwin, he was right. The species progresses. But what science doesn't know is that physical manifestation of the evolution is the manifestation of the spiritual evolution. That's why they're missing links that are not necessarily happening on the same planet like on the Earth. We learn in the Spirit's book, and André Luiz reinforces that in the book Evolution into Worlds, that some of these transitions happen in another dimension. That's why science cannot understand completely how some of the gaps in between this evolution of the species happened, because we're talking about a world in two worlds. And he says, traveling always and acquiring superior psychological reactions in different Jurassic forms, the spiritual principle incorporates the conquest of instinct and intelligence. The conquest of instinct and intelligence. Thus, in the marsupials and crustaceans, doing internship in the marsupials and crustaceans, and he talks about all the different names of the species. This is in primitive times. We incorporate acquisitions that are very important for and adapting ourselves as spiritual principles. And in the selection of the most important features to acquire, we inaugurate the first steps of reasoning. Okay? And in his very chapter 3 of the book Evolution into Worlds, part 1, he talks about the missing links that I mentioned to you. Okay, this book soon will come true in English. It's already in English but needs to be published. And I know the Brazilian Spiritist Federation is taking care of it. And then there is evolution over time. And then the first species of the animals is acquiring opportunities to learn and to progress. And he gives numbers here, okay? Let me read to you. Evolution over time. This way that the monocellular organisms go to become complex organisms, and the intelligent principle discipline the cells, putting it at its service and traveling towards the destination that was marked by the superior plane, going through the mental mode that is going to work with the laws of action and reaction, renovation, moving its own acquisitions inside, creating opportunities for the development of the nervous stimulus, the immunological defense, and creating the automatisms that now are in our human body. Throughout this book, André Luiz is going to tell us how these internships in different species of the different kingdoms is going to form the human spiritual body, the perispirit, in its automatisms of the functions. For example, the heart beats. We don't need to think for it to beat. But how does it happen? How it becomes an automatism? How? Good question, huh? André Luiz explains to us. It happens through the internships, intelligent principle into matter. Let's give a break. Think about this, dear listener. If you have any question, call us, 858-769-4705. And a short break just so you chew upon the information we gave to you. Soon after this, we're going to continue into this understanding of the evolution of animals, the evolution of ourselves, okay?
So. Each heart is like a parcel of spiritual land. Many will be buried by the stones of prejudice at the side of others who got entangled by the thorns of illusion, needing enormous time to break free. However, think about the good land not in use. This is where elements that generate inertia are found. Abandoned lands, orphaned lands, creatures who are anxious for the fertilizer of faith, souls who beg for a modest garden of hope and comfort. These troubled, forgotten lands will often look for you. Your vision will open up through the fatigue of the parents where pain manifests, tortures, and consumes, through the disillusionment of your sad fellows who carry in their hearts the ashes of their own dreams, through the problems of the child who is consumed by revolt, through the trials of your brothers and sisters who cry smiling so that you may not see the debris of their resentment. If you can already hear the sublime sower proclaiming, "Sow, sow," you know that charity is the sun that sweeps the shadows. You bring within you the gift to sprinkle comfort. You can pronounce the blessed word. You can pour what is left from the purse, transforming the coin in a prayer of joy. You have the strong arm which lifts up the fallen. Your fingers are capable of mending the strings broken by suffering in others' hearts, attuning them to the sound of the fraternal music. You have the privilege of sharing clothes you no longer need with those less fortunate. Nothing hinders you from helping the sick. Nobody prevents you from building in the road the good for those who are here and for those who are to come. Do not deter yourself in the emptiness of the shadows. Plant truth and light, joy and goodness. If you perceive the voice of the sublime sower, you will hear him at each step of the way, confidently saying closer to your ears, "Work while you can, and sow."
Yes, and that's how we grow, by sowing. Remember the mechanism that André Luiz tells us: effort and repetition, effort, repetition, effort, repetition. Let's meditate on this, dear listener. If life is hard, we tend to escape away from the problems. But the question is, what if this is a situation in which I need to face? So through the effort and repetition, I grow out of it. Many suicide spirits, they will face similar situations in next lives until they learn to courageously face it and never give up. I know that when we commit suicide, we're not willing to be dead, escaping from the pain. But the question is, what can we do to overcome that pain, that difficulty, without escaping away? Facing it and finding a new solution. The solution is in God. The solution is in the single opportunity of progressing, of finding that we are not this moment. The moment we experience does not define us. Many people think, "Oh, I'm not loved because people don't agree with me, do not accept me." My friends, God loves us, and that's all that matters. People are also struggling. You may not know it. They may seem to be very popular, but in reality, only when we are with ourselves we can tell if we're happy and really, really well. And the adoration and the admiration of people is so passing. Look at Jesus himself. People praised him one day, the next day they were crucifying him. It's the lesson of all lessons for us. People may say to you, "You're the best," until they disagree with you. And then you become the worst. That's human nature. So don't rely upon people's opinion of yours about you so you can keep moving forward. Don't do that. Think about how much God loves you, how much the superior spirits take care of you, because that's one of the lessons we learn from the book Evolution into Worlds. We're all loved, all animals, plants, even the bacteria and the viruses. They're kindly taken care of by illuminated minds of the beyond who are true servants of God in the universe. And they are leading us into the next step of evolution. In this chapter 3, André Luiz wraps it up beautiful way by telling us to reach the era of reason with the title of human being, with reasoning and discernment, the intelligent principle, automatizing its impulses, and marching towards the angelic kingdom, it spent many era, 1.5 billion years. Then, through the civilization that went next, with the blessings of Christ, paired the first human species for the opportunities of the spirits who are entering the human kingdom. All of it, he says, happened through the internships, the automatisms that are going to be created and recorded in our spiritual body. That's another detail we cannot lose sight of. Our spiritual body, the perispirit, imprints, registers, and stores every single experience of ours. Okay? It's impossible to do anything in life without the registering in our spiritual body. And that's how sometimes it's so puzzling for us to understand many things, because we're going to recapitulate new learnings through these acquisitions that are already stored in our spiritual body. And then the physical body is going to be a manifestation of it. That's how we also learn about the process of diseases manifesting in the physical body. They're not the origin. They are the manifestation of an imbalance we created sometimes in previous lives. And now it's being flushed out of our spiritual body, expunged from our spiritual body into forms of diseases. In this very book we're mentioning, part 2, we have a specific chapter in which André Luiz unveils to us how we're predisposed to illnesses. And he says to us, we become predisposed to illnesses when the conscience of ours makes grave mistakes that were not approved by our conscience, the divine conscience inside of us. And thus we create, as André Luiz explains, nodules of disturbed vibrations in our spiritual body that are going to be pulsating and need a reincarnation to be expunged from our perispirit. I know today we're talking about a lot of information, but this is just for the friends who have asked us to dedicate this program regarding the evolution of animals. Please listen to the program live or on demand and give us a call. Send us an email. If you want deeper information, we can schedule another moment, another program in which we're going to unveil greater details of it. If you're satisfied with the information we shared with you today, also write to us, please, so we know that we fulfilled your request. After all, Kardec Radio is here to nourish your soul, to nourish everybody's souls. And this is how Spiritism is brought to us. Dear listener, we're here and would like to wrap up the program with a prayer. Let us pray Is that okay? Let us pray and together pray especially for those who haven't yet understood that life is all about acquisitions of love through effort and repetition. Through effort and repetition. Let us pray. Dear Mother, Father God, we thank you very much for the opportunity of serving. Thank you for Kardec Radio, the venue through which we communicate with one another and expand our awareness. Thank you so much for the opportunities of learning and progressing. May we feel your presence always. And may especially those who are struggling with their own evolution, they feel a helping hand, guiding them, because we know we are always protected and guided in our educational path. May the missionaries of light receive our deepest gratitude. May through our path, the fulfillment of your will on the earth, be better co-creators of all yours. So one day, we can join forces with you at other levels. May we learn to administer our own connection with the physical body, beautiful cells, little animals that are connected to us, serving us in your name. May we be kind to them, loving, and guide them with joy to their own evolution as well. And so be it. Yeah, dear listener, what a joy it is to be here with you. If you go to KardecRadio.com, you get to know more information about what we're doing here each and every day. Kardec Radio is here every day. New programs every day. Just go to the website. Our weekly schedule is there. You can't lose sight of it. We have hosts from around the world that are helping us understand more about the message of the spirits here at Kardec Radio. In a week, we'll be back here with you. We hope you have enjoyed the program. If you have any questions, just write to us. We're always happy to listen from you.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.